Good morning, this is Shelby Law with the Great Basin Fire Potential Briefing for Thursday, July 20th, 2023. The fire potential impacts for the next few days are shown here. The main story is the heat that's going to be building back into the Great Basin over the next few days into the weekend. Very hot temperatures are returning with a pretty dry air mass, especially across the north. We do see some continued thunderstorms possible today in mainly Utah, up into eastern Idaho, and portions of eastern Nevada. And then on Friday, those thunderstorms really decrease quite a bit, and certainly by Saturday decreasing as well. Yesterday was a very active day for showers and thunderstorms, mainly over Utah and Nevada. Most of these storms were accompanied by some light precipitation at least, and in some areas we had heavier precipitation where these green shaded areas are in northeast Nevada, right along the Utah-Nevada border, and then here in western Nevada as well. Those storms were pretty wet. Our fire activity shows an increase in initial attack with this lightning activity that we've had over the past few days. And we do have two team fires in Idaho, in the central Idaho mountains here. They're both around 700 to 1,000 acres each there in central Idaho. Observed precip for the past 14 days is shown here. It's been pretty light for the last couple of weeks. This doesn't show the precip from yesterday, but does kind of show that trend with the precipitation starting on Tuesday there. Been very dry over Idaho for the past couple of weeks, and we're seeing the impacts there with those large fires. Current ERC charts are shown here for the central Idaho mountains, where those values have been on a very sharp increase for the past couple of weeks, from much below normal to above normal for the time of year and heading towards the 90th percentile. There really is no precipitation expected in the forecast up here in central Idaho, so we expect these values to continue to rise over the coming days. Over southwest Utah, the precipitation over the past couple of days and increased relative humidity has caused the ERCs to decrease there back down to normal for the time of year. It will dry out a bit for the weekend, but we are expecting a return of moisture early next week to keep these values near normal. This morning's satellite imagery shows that large elongated area of high pressure being suppressed back down to the southwest. So hot today, but not as hot as it's going to be. This high pressure will rebuild over the Great Basin over the coming days and bring that heat back into the area. Some moisture still remains in place over Utah, eastern Idaho, and eastern Nevada for, again, another round of isolated showers and thunderstorms, but that should be a much smaller extent today than we had yesterday. So for today, again, some moisture lingering underneath that ridge as it tries to build back in or begins to build back into the Great Basin. No high risk triggers have been issued for today. Precipitation here on the left is shown, and we are again looking for those thunderstorms to develop again. Utah, eastern Idaho, eastern Nevada, but those should be a little bit more spotty in coverage. Minimum relative humidities are higher, again, where the moisture is in Utah, but quite low in portions of northwest Nevada and up into much of Idaho. Near some of our fires, those relative humidities are going to be quite low, really today through the weekend. On Friday, the ridge builds over the Great Basin, bringing heat back into the area. No high-risk triggers are issued. With the heat comes dryness, but we also expect to see generally light winds through the period. So for tomorrow, high temperatures 104 in Boise, 104 in Reno, a little bit cooler on the east side. Minimum relative humidities in the low single digits across Nevada, just slightly higher over Idaho, and coming down over Utah. On Saturday, that ridge again places itself over the Great Basin, keeping temperatures very hot, generally light winds. We could see some breezy conditions if we get a little bit of moisture coming up into eastern Nevada. We could see some isolated storms develop there, and may see some breezy winds there, but no high risk triggers issued. So again, very hot, 105 in Boise, hot everywhere. And then the wind gusts again on Saturday. We could see some winds pick up over eastern Nevada up into southern Idaho, depending on if we get a little bit of moisture and possibly some thunderstorms. Um, and maybe the central Idaho mountains will have some slightly breezier winds as well. 3-day precip totals are pretty light compared to what we have seen the last couple of days. So really just today we're expecting these storms to pop up again over Utah and eastern Idaho or eastern Nevada, and then drying out. On Sunday, the ridge remains in place with hot temperatures. We'll start to see a little bit of moisture trying to wrap around that ridge and move up into the Great Basin. The storms could possibly start as early as Sunday, but it is looking more like Monday when that ridge shifts slightly to the south and east, allowing the moisture to really be drawn up into the Great Basin, central portions of the Great Basin. So we do expect to see an increase in thunderstorm activity once again early next week as the moisture wraps around that ridge. We can see some of our PSAs returning to yellow with the return of that moisture back into the Great Basin, but still staying dry, brown across the north. And on Tuesday, some of that moisture may linger, but it looks like we dry out across the north with a low that moves into the Pacific Northwest, keeping things dry. We may get some breezy winds up in central Idaho into the first part of next week as well. And then more of the same on Wednesday. Moisture underneath the ridge, especially over Utah. Afternoon, isolated thunderstorms over the higher terrain, and then drier over Nevada and Idaho. 7-day totals showing that kind of classic monsoon feed from the southwest, picking up the thunderstorms over mainly the central Utah mountains as we go into the first part of next week. The extended outlook for July 27th through August 2nd puts the bullseye of temperature a little bit off to the east, but still very hot over the Great Basin, and then below normal chances for precip over Idaho and northern Nevada. We'll see what the monsoon does as we head into the first part of August, but it does look like, right now, kind of that couple days off, couple days on kind of a pattern. And that concludes today's fire potential briefing. Please check back tomorrow for the latest updates.